Did Panasonic just release the best camera for video in 2019? And is 6K finally becoming the norm? Today we're going to have a look at the brand new Panasonic S1H and dissect what it's all about.
In this video, we'll be sharing our first impressions of the S1H, as well as the physical differences between this one and the S1, and we're going to be taking a look at the exciting features built into the camera.
The Panasonic S1H unit we have today is unfortunately just a sample and prototype model. Look into the near future, probably in a month or so, where we will have a full release model of the S1H, and we'll be doing a full review of that. However, today we're just going to be having a look at the camera and what it's all about. First things first, the Panasonic S1H is designed for the cinema users and the filmmakers. It's basically like an S1 on the inside, however, it's got a lot of hardware as well as design differences that benefit filmmakers and cinema people. Let's go through what those are and the differences between the body of this and the S1. Today I brought in my Panasonic S1 just to compare the differences between the two. At the back of the camera, you'll notice that there is a brand new screen mechanism. So with the S1 and S1R, a lot of consumers weren't really too happy about the tilt angle screen, as cameras such as the GH5 had a flip out screen. Now in the S1H, they've redesigned the flip out screen and incorporated with a little mechanism to allow it to tilt as well. So not only can the screen tilt back and forth, but it can also flip out, which means that if you are a vlogger or if you are trying to do shots at more interesting angles, you can now achieve it on the S1H with a hinge that isn't gonna be likely to break anytime soon. One of my favorite features about the Panasonic S1H in design is that it has front and rear tally lights, which the S1 didn't have. Now, when we film our YouTube videos and Josh is filming on his Canon C200, I find it extremely handy with the front tally light to know when Josh is recording and when he's not recording. Now on the S1H, it has that at the front and rear, so the person that is filming behind the camera will know when it's recording without trying to look at the screen, and the person in front of the camera will also know. Just a nice little feature that goes a long way. You will notice that the physical size of the S1H is bigger than the S1, and that is because of the inclusion of a silent fan motor that is located at the back of the camera. There is an intake and an exhaust to basically take in cool air and keep the camera cool when you're filming for long periods of time. And this means you'll be able to record in any format at an unlimited recording time, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, unfortunately, we can't test the actual noise of the fan, as this model is not a final production model. However, I have been told that the fan does not make a loud noise and will not pick up from the microphone at all, but we'll test that in a future video. On top of the camera, the S1H does sport a top LCD for your settings. However, unlike the S1H's screen is basically double the size. There's so much more information that you can gather out of the S1H, not only for photo, but video as well. Now, one pet peeve that I have a lot about mirrorless cameras at the moment is the placement of the record button. On the Sonys, they have a really awkward spot on some cameras, and even on some other cameras, they don't even have record buttons and rely on the shutter button to initiate your recording. Now, the S1H has two record buttons. You've got one at the top, this large red button that you can just press and initiate recording, and also one at the front, which is quite neat to have. On the side of the camera, like the S1H still sports dual card support. However, unlike the S1, it does not use an XQD and SD card, but two SDXC2 cards, which will mean that you can get some pretty high speeds out of the camera on both slots. And one of the coolest things about the S1H as well, it will allow you to do simultaneous recording on both cards or your typical rollover or backup as per usual. On the left-hand side of the cameras, they share the same ports. You still have your USB-C port for charging and transfer. You've got your HDMI full-size port, and you've also got your remote, mic, and headphone port. Sorry. Some other improvements on the S1H as well. If you did like the grip of the S1, then the S1H is a bit deeper, so you have a more solid hold on the camera. And a lot of people complained about the on and off switch on the S1 as it was in a weird position and didn't really lock properly. The S1H has your typical on and off flick switch like you would see on a DSLR. And finally, despite all the design differences on the S1H and the inclusion of the fan, surprisingly, the S1H still keeps the same weather resistance that it did in the S1. So now let's talk about the features of the S1H.
Taking a look at the specifications of the S1H, it has a 24 megapixel full frame sensor with a ISO range from 50 to 200, 4800. When filming in Vlog, you get a dual native ISO of 640 and 4000, and you also get 14 stops of dynamic range. The camera also has dual IS, compensating up to 6.5 stops. In terms of resolution, you can record up to 6K at 25 frames per second, 4K up to 60 frames per second, and also Full HD up to 180 frames per second.
Now, one of my favorite things about the Panasonic S1H, unlike a lot of other cinema or video cameras on the market, is that the S1H is still a fully fledged photography camera as well. This is truly a really strong hybrid camera, as not only does it do high-end video, but supports basically all the high-end photo features that were in the S1. You still have a large 24 megapixel high-res sensor, you still have creative modes such as high resolution photo mode, and it can still continuously up to 9 frames per second, so you can still get those action shots going. Now, stay tuned for a future video where we will fully dissect the S1H and compare the pros and cons of the camera, talk about its image quality and video quality, and possibly even compare it with samples from the S1. Make sure to follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, and our blog, which links to those are in our description below to stay up to date with what's going on in store. And as always, if you enjoyed our video, hit the like button and the subscribe button so you don't miss out on our future updates as we upload videos weekly.